Okay, great. Okay, so what is the thing which I started with? I started with hash include IOStream. This IOStream is for input output. So to print anything on the console, IOStream is required. Right? Keep, as of now, just keep this thing in mind. Then I would say using namespace std. These two, I can say that these are compulsory statements that you'll have to write. Not exactly compulsory what C++ wants, but I think we should use it all the time. Right? Using this namespace std allows you to use cout in this way. Right? Then I use the cout with this operator, which is two less than signs. Right? And then I gave an input to it. How did I give the input? I gave the input inside two inverted commas. So this is the way that we need to give input, and we conclude the line by using a semicolon, right? And here whatever I type, right, will get it, right? Then I compiled it, and then I am executing it, right? So I got this thing here. Since I did not give a new line, it started printing immediately. Is it clear? Okay, great. Right. Okay. So the next thing that I am going to do is I'm going to clear all these things. Right. And I would write a function. Right. I'll explain what a function is, but as of now, just have a look at it. I would say print, sorry, I would say void print any string. Right. And I would say string str. Right. And I would simply say cout str. And here, what I would say is, I will call this function. I would say print any string, right? And inside this, I would type hello world. Right? I save this. I say here. Right now, I'll first execute this, and then I'll start explaining one by one what I've done. First, I'll compile this. Right, so it's compiled. Then I say /day1. Right, so it printed hello world. Right, since I am not using any new line character, I can simply say cout \n. Right, so as you can see, we get this hello world printed on the console. Right, now let me tell you what this is. Right, now what is print any string? This print any string, it is a function whose name is print any string. Right, you can give whatever name you want with some constraints, like some keywords which C++ reserves for itself. Right. Other than that, you can give any name. Try to give meaningful names to your functions. Right. Now, what is a function? You can consider function as a block of code. What is this? This is a block of code. Right. So you can consider function as a block of code with a name. Right. So what is a print any string? This is the name of that function. So what is a function? It is a block of code with a name. Right. And you can give input to that function. Right, so you can give 0 or more inputs to that function, and that function can have some output. Right, so just in a layman's term, what I would say, a function is a block of code. Right, now why I am saying a block of code? Because C++ is a block structured language, And whatever you write, generally you write inside a block. And what is a block? Block is denoted by two curly braces, that is one opening and one closing curly braces. So what is a function? Function is a block of code, right, which is enclosed in two curly braces, right? Then it has a name. I would say with a name, right? Then with input as parameters, or I would say called as parameters, right? So a function, right, it is a block of code, right, with a name, right, and it has input as parameters, right, which can be 0 or more, and with data type of the output. Right, and the output can be 0 or 1. By 0 or 1, I am not meaning binary. What I mean is a function can return either 0 values or it can return 1 value. Right, now in this particular case, our function is not returning any value. So when your function does not return any output, when the function does not return any output, we give the data type of the output as void. We give the data type of the output as void, right? So in very simple or in layman's term, what is a function? A function is a block of code which is enclosed in curly braces. It has a name. See, this is the block of code, right? It has a name, right, which is print any string, and it has 0 or more inputs. In this case, we have only one input. Now these inputs, they are enclosed in parentheses. These inputs, they are enclosed in a parenthesis, right? And they are also called as parameters. So this function, which is print any string, right? It is a function, right, which has one parameter, which is of the data type string, right? And it has only one input, which is string, whose type is string, and the variable in which we are taking that input, it is str. Right, now in the same way, as I said, that a function can have 0 or more inputs. Now whenever I say parameters or arguments, what I mean is the input to that function, right? Keep this thing in mind. Right, now I will write another function. I would say void, I would say print hello world. Right, then I try to give input, but this is my function without any input. Right, there is nothing inside this. This parenthesis is compulsory. Right, but even if you do not have any input, this parenthesis is compulsory. And inside this, what I would do is I would simply say cout \n hello world. Right. So this is a function with 0 output. Sorry, 0 input and no output. By no output, what I mean is that it is not returning anything. And how many values can it return? It can return either 0 values or 1 values or one single value. If it is not returning anything, means it does not have a return statement. Whereas if it is returning anything, it will have a return statement. Right, I'll come to that slowly. Right, but as of now, right, just for now, right, did you guys understand in a layman's term what a function is? Then how to give an input to the function via parameters, and yeah, did you guys understand this much? Especially non-CAC IT guys. CAC IT guys might find this pretty easy. They might be knowing this. Okay, excellent, great. Right. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, now let me try to write a function, right, which has two parameters and it returns an output, right? So I'm writing a function whose return type or whose output, data type of the output, this thing which I am saying, right, it is an integer, right? And I would say add two nums. That is the name of my function. And I'll pass two inputs to it. I say int a, comma int b. Now one new thing, right, that we learned in this is that when you are passing more than one parameters, right, you have to pass them separated by a comma, right? So what I would say, input called as parameters separated by comma, right? I would say with input called as parameters, right, which are 0 or more, and if there are more than one, then they should be separated by a comma, right? Now what is the job of this function? The job of this function is to add the two inputs which are passed to it. Job of this function is to add two inputs which are passed to it, right? Now which are the two inputs? One is a and second input is b. Now what I would do is I would add these two numbers, right, and I would return their value. Now what is this int for? Addition of two integers would always result in an integer, right? So I am returning an integer, and what this integer would be? This integer would be nothing but the addition of this a and b. So I can simply say return a plus b. Right. Now a function which has a return statement, as of now, what you can say is that function has an output, right? For the function which do not have any return statements, right, you can safely write void as the data type, right? Now what to write in the return type of a function, that simply depends upon what job that function is doing. मतलब वो function क्या काम कर रहा है, उसके बेसिस पे आप वो function का return type लिखोगे, ठीक है? जैसा अब ये print hello world जो है, ये print hello world क्या कर रहा है? ये सिंपल एक सी आउट कर रहा है, कंसोल पे कुछ तो प्रिंट कर रहा है, राइट? ये कुछ रिटर्न नहीं करेगा, ये सिंपली प्रिंट करेगा. इसीलिए हमने इसमें कोई रिटर्न स्टेटमेंट नहीं डाला और यहाँ सिंपल void रखा. इन द सेम वे प्रिंट एनी स्ट्रिंग, ठीक है, इसमें एक इनपुट आ रहा है, लेकिन इसका काम क्या है? ये सिंपली जो भी स्ट्रिंग इससे आ रही है उस स्ट्रिंग को वो प्रिंट कर रहा है, ठीक है? इसीलिए हमने इसमें भी रिटर्न स्टेटमेंट नहीं डाला. एंड दैट इज द रीजन बोथ दीज फंक्शंस दे आर हैविंग द रिटर्न टाइप एज void. In this particular function which is add two numbers, हमने क्या किया? We are giving it two parameters. One is int a, another one is int b. Both are integers a and b. And what I am doing an a plus b, and I am returning that value. Now a plus b would be an integer. So this function, if we use this function, right, it will not print anything. Instead, it will return the addition of whatever numbers, two numbers which are passed to it. राइट. अब ये फंक्शंस जो है, हमने तीन फंक्शंस लिखे, एक दो तीन, राइट. वेराज मेरे मेन में मैंने क्या किया? मेन में मैंने इनमें से तीन में से एक ही फंक्शन यूज किया, राइट. तो टू यूज अ फंक्शन, राइट, वी कॉल इट एज अ फंक्शन कॉल, राइट. वेराज these things 1 2 3, right, the functions, right, which are with a block, they are called as function definitions, right, or they are also called as function body, right. So this is a function body, whereas this thing is a function call, right. Now keep one thing in mind, right. What is that thing? That thing is that unless we make a function call, unless we make a function call. That is, unless we use a function, right? That function will not run, right? Let us try this thing out, right? I again compile this thing and I run this thing. What I got is I simply got hello world, right? Which is what I am passing here. If I say hello world 1 instead of hello world, I run this and I say again. So I got hello world 1, right? So which is the function which I am using? I am using print any string named function, right? Which is this function, right? So this hello world was never printed, which we wrote here, right? This a plus b, again nothing is happening. Why? Because we have not used these functions. So unless we use these functions, right, nothing is gonna happen. Then, right, let me use this function. I'd say print hello world. Right, now what I am using, right, I am trying to use this function as well. So what will my output be? My output would be first a hello world 1 would be printed, right? Then a hello world would be printed. Right, now let us check that out. See, so I got a hello world 1 and here I got a hello world. Right, then what I would try to do is I would try to use the function with some output. Now this particular function add two numbers, it returns us an integer. It is not going to print anything. Let me first just use this. I would say add two nums, right? And I'll pass two integers. I'll say 5 comma 10. Right, now let me see what happens. Right, now again, if you see the output which we see on the console did not change. Ideally, what we might think is that this would print 15, but no, it won't. Unless we use cout, right, nothing would be printed. Right, this is the bottom line. So what has happened is this add to num function was called, right? We passed 5 and 10. It returned us 15, but we have not taken that return value or used that return value anywhere. So what I would do instead is I would say cout, right? And I'll pass this function there. Right, I saved that and I say G++ and I say day1. Now if you can see, we can see a 15 here. If I give a new line here and a new line here. Now if you can see, right, we have hello world 1 which is printed via print any string function. Then we have hello world as output which is printed via print hello world function. And then we have 15 which is printed via this function, right? And we are passing 5 and 10. Now the best use of function is that you don't have to write the same code again and again, right? Like you could always write a cout 10 plus 5 and get 15 printed, right? But this would in a way be hard coding, right? So that's not what we want to do, right? That is why we are trying to use functions here. And using functions is very, very important. Understanding functions is very, very important. Right? Once you do that, things would become pretty easy. Is it clear until now? Others? Okay. Right. Now this is fairly simple to do. Okay, right. And the same thing, we can always use it here and run, right? I'm not running this, but uh, I would I would like if you guys can run it on some online compiler. This online GDB, online C++ compiler is good because this would give you the feel of what you guys do uh, in TCS. Not exactly the same feel, but still this would be usable. Right, so always try to run on such compilers. You can use any compiler, any online compiler, right, and try doing it. Okay. Any questions still here? Any questions which you wish to ask? यहाँ तक? Okay. 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 So next thing what we would try to do is we would try to take the input from the user. Right. We'll simply try to take an integer as an input from the user. Right. Now to take an input, sorry, to take an input from the user, right? What we use is a cin, and we use this operator, two greater than operators. Right, they are called as insertion and extraction operators, but let's not worry about that, what they are called. Right. So what I would do is I would declare a variable, let's say n. Right, and I would say cin n. Right, and before that, what I would say is I would say cout enter and enter two integers backslash n. What will cout do? Cout would simply print it on the console. What will cin do? Cin would wait for user to input or type something on the console. That is what cin would do, right? And whatever you type, if you type an integer, right, you would get that integer inside this variable n, which is an integer which we have declared. Right, now since we need two variables, I would say m comma n, and I would say cin m, again a greater than, two greater than signs, and n. So what is this statement going to do? This statement, right, it will wait for the user to enter something on the console. Once this is done, what I would do, right, I use these two integers, right, and add them up using this function, which is add two nums, and print it on the console. So I would say cout backslash n, right, addition of m and n is, I'll give a this thing as well. Then I would say add two nums, and I'll pass m and n to it, right, and I would again say a backslash n. Right, now let us see if this thing works. What I have done is, whatever is inside this inverted commas, it would print as it is. So it will print addition of m and n is. After that, what it would do is, it will call this function, add two nums. And what is it doing? It is passing the values of m and n inside as parameters to these two functions, to this function, which is add two nums. And this is simply a new line which we want to print. Right, now let us compile this, right, and let us run it. Right, now if you can see, it first printed this hello world one, then it printed hello world via this, then it printed 15 because we passed 5 and 10 as input to this function and a new line, right? Then it printed enter two integers, right, and a new line, so it came on the new line. Now it is expecting or it is waiting for the user to input something here. So I would say 10 and 20. Right, so what it said, addition of m and n is 30. Right, how is it printing this thing? Backslash n, then a space, that is why there is a space here. Then it is saying addition of m and n is, right, and then it is simply printing add two nums, and I am passing the value of this m, which is variable m, which is 10 because I have inputted 10 here, and this n, which is 20 because I have passed 20 here, right? So it will call this function. What is this function going to do? This function is going to return us a and b, addition of a and b, right? Now the value of this m which we pass, it goes inside this a, and the value of n which we pass, it goes inside this b. Right, so a becomes 10, or a has the value 10 and b has the value 20. It calculates 10 plus 20, which is 30, and it returns 30. And this statement here, right, it is directly replaced by 30 and then a new line character. So what it would print as output, it would say addition of m and n is, then a colon, then a space, right, then it says 30, and then a new line character, right? Again, if I run this, right, I give 55 and I give 76, right? So it printed 131, which would be addition of 55 and 76, right? So that is how we have a function, right, which takes two parameters, which are integers as input, right, and it returns an integer as output. And we call that function here, passing two parameters to it. Right, now, is it clear yahan tak? Okay, Avinash, sorry, it's not clear. Okay, okay. So for those to whom it is not clear, like say Ayush, Avinash, sorry, right? I'm sure that this would go a little on top of your head, but slowly you would start understanding. What you can do is today that at the end of this class, right? Uh, just refer to the video which I would be sending to you, right? And try implementing this in some compiler, right? Preferably this way, right? Because I have tested this compiler, this works to our needs. So would you do that? Okay, okay, great. What I can also do is I'll send you this code for reference. Now I'm not very sure that why is it not allowing me to paste, but anyways, okay. You have this code in the video, so uh, what I want is that you should type this code on your own. Just running this code is not going to help. Right? Anyways, that is fine. Now, which compiler? अच्छा गया वो code. Another question: which compiled or compiler to use for offline compilation? Use anything. Now, since I'm having a Mac OS, I am having G++ compiler, GCC compiler, right? So I'm using that. But if you are on Windows, use any compiler other than uh, that Turbo C. Turbo C is very Baba Adam Zamane ka compiler, right? So avoid using Turbo C, right? I can give you a dev CPP, right? This is a good compiler. You can search for dev CPP, right? Download it and run it, right? You'll be able to. Yes, dev CPP is good, Avinash, right? It is good, no issues, right? For running basic programs, dev CPP is really good. There is one Borland compiler as well. Or if you want to use G++ or GCC on Windows, then there is a way you can do that using Cygwin. Right. So there is a CYGWIN. This Cygwin has a GDB or G++ plugin which you can always start using. Right. But that would be a complex process. Cygwin खुद आधे GB का वगैरह रहेगा. So you need to take that call which one you wish to use. And setup would be might be a little challenge if you have not done it before or if you are not well versed with it. Is it okay यहाँ तक? Yes. Okay. Okay. Great. Great. Okay. Okay. Now, since we have many guys who are not from this background, programming background, right? What I would do is, I don't want to move very fast today, right? So I would stop here and I'll give you a few assignments. I'll give it to you right now itself. Uh, First is write a program, uh, write a function, right, that prints the following, or write functions that print the following. My name is okay. I am from Nagpur. Right. Now, when I say that write a function that prints the following, right, what you also have to do is you also have to match the spaces and the new lines. So, in this first function that you would be writing, right, I want you to print my name is Gandhar Patwardhan, or you can type your own name here instead of my name, right? And in the next line, you should say I am from Nagpur, right? This would give you uh, a knack and feel of how to use C out and how to use a new line character, right? Then the second thing that I want you guys to do is write a function that prints the following. do for this mandatory first program. Right. This is the second thing that you need to do. Right. Functions that print the following. Okay. Uh, Please note that the each of the function should have void as return type and zero parameters. Right. Now this is a mandate for writing these functions. Right. Then write function that takes a string as that takes two strings as parameters and prints the two strings A in the same line uh, without any space. Then second thing is in two in the same line, right, with a space in between, right, and C in two separate lines. Right. The function would have some name, right? Give the function the name like this: void print two string one, right? Print two strings one, and it would have string str1 comma string str2. Right. This is the first function. Right. In the same way, you can have print two strings 2 and print two strings 3. Right. And this should follow these rules. Right. Following the rules are very important because TCS would want you to follow these rules. Right. Each space counts. Right. So ensure that you follow these rules while printing. Right. And then I would say write functions for the following. Return, calculates and returns multiplication of two numbers, two integers, I would say. B would be calculates and returns area of triangle, right, with base and height as two integer parameters and float as output. Or instead of output type, I would write as return type. And C calculates and prints, calculates and returns area of circle with radius as an integer parameter. Right. Please know that uh, do not print anything inside a function unless explicitly specified. पूरा नहीं देता है क्या? Anyways, what I'll do is I'll send this file on WhatsApp. So that would be a much better thing to do. But is it clear? ये assignment आप लोग कर लोगे? Right? Try completing these assignments today. Also, tell me, is my speed very fast or very slow? Yes, you have to make separate functions for question 2. Let me see question 2 in the same line. Yes, you have to make separate functions, 3 functions. Manish says speed is fine. Okay, others? How is my speed? Is it fast, slow? Okay. Space is all right. Okay, great. Still, I would also want others to reply as well.